Hey, how's it going? Today I'm talking about my newest phrase, more is more, balanced is better. This is Running to the Castle, a podcast for injury-prone Run Disney runners on a journey to running magical miles. Join me, Dr. Allie, as I share the secrets I've gathered as a runner, doctor of physical therapy, and coach. You'll learn the exact ways I get my clients to the castle strong without feeling broken or held together with KT tape as they cross the finish line. I often see all sorts of questions come up in different Facebook groups, in my DMs, and people will say, well, I have this knee pain, hurts when I'm running, feels fine when I'm at rest, like it's really not hurt, but I need more strength exercises to heal my knee pain, to get rid of the knee pain, to get stronger knees for whatever the reason that they think is happening. Or I need more stretches, or I need, yeah, I'd say those two are the ones. I was gonna say I need more shoes, but no. I mean, yes, maybe you need more shoes, sure, if you're anything like my husband. Um, more shoes is better in that case. But no, it's really like the more strength exercises and the more stretching. More is more. Balanced is better. So what do I mean by this? More isn't necessarily better. Not necessarily worse either, but it's not necessarily better. And doing more a lot of the time can actually make you worse. So a good example is with strength exercises where somebody has knee pain. This is typically the situation. Let me know if this is the situation that you find yourself in, because if you're anything like the majority of my clients, I'd say like 90% of my clients, this is the story I hear. And it's you want to train for a Disney race. Let's say you're training for the marathon. And so, springtime surprise ended. Wow, springtime surprise. Every time I try and say it, my tongue gets tied. So forgive me. Springtime surprise ended. You take some time off, as one does. Take some time off. And then, so that's April. And then May, probably still taking some time off because Run Disney season going from now September until April, it's a long time of being in season and training. So taking a well-deserved amount of time off, and then June pops in. And you notice, oh shoot, training for the marathon is gonna pop around in July. And let's say this is your first marathon. So you are doing things right. You're going to take the time to train for the marathon. And so you're starting to dabble back in with some running probably in June. And so you're like, okay, well, just did Springtime Surprise, longest was 10 miles, or I did Princess, longest was half marathon. I'm going to go out. I'm going to do a couple of 5Ks this week. I'm going to feel good. Going to go out after some good earned rest, go out and do some 5Ks. Do 2 or 3 of those that week. Feeling great. Tired, like, I guess I haven't run. My muscles are feeling it, but they recover pretty quick. So the next week, okay, well, I'll do 4 miles a couple of days. And you're like, okay, this is feeling pretty good. And you go on like this until it's marathon training time. So you do 4 miles a couple of days a week, and then the next week you dabble between 3 and 5 miles, a couple of shorter ones because it's busy at the end of the school year for your kids. So doing some shorter runs during the middle of the week, maybe a 5-mile long run, and then get up to 6 or 7 for your longest run last week in June. Now your knee, not so happy. You look back and you're like, oh, last year or a couple of years ago, this is more it. A couple of years ago, I was strength training more. I really got out of that. I need more strength exercises. So you find a strength program on YouTube, and it has a lunge and a squat track. So you do that 2 days a week. They're like 45 minutes long. Get a good solid workout, really sweating. So you're doing that 2 days a week. You're running 3 or 4 days now. We're getting into marathon training, so that's typically about 4 days. And you have a couple of rest days, getting back in the groove of things. You do that for like a month and your knee isn't happy. You're getting to like the 6, 7, 8 mile mark, and your knee kind of hurts a little bit. Then it feels better once you're done. Or you walk a little bit, it feels better, and then you run a little bit. And then once you're done running that day, it starts feeling better. And you chalk it up that it's just not used to running this much. You're now running 4 days. You used to only run 3 days. And it's still not strong enough. So let's go ahead and add some weights. Let's go ahead and hold on to the 10-pound or the 15-pound dumbbells, doing these lunges, doing these squats, doing some goblet squats. And you do more and more and more. Your knee is getting worse and worse and worse. Does this sound familiar? Now your knee hurts going up and down stairs. It hurts when you hit, the long run for the week. You can't do your speed workout. The faster you go, the more your knee hurts. But when you take a break, when you rest, or when you walk, it feels better. Maybe not 100% gone, but not really killing you. So you do more strength exercises. Now now I need 20-pound dumbbells, or I need to do more repetitions or less rest. So more frequency sooner back in on the strength exercises. Doing more strength exercises in this case is making you worse. Not helping, not making you better. More in this case is making you worse. The reason for that, the way I talk about it, is it needs to be a balanced equation. So this whole podcast is more, balanced is better. It needs to be balanced out. There are things in your training that build strength and endurance, make you stronger, build the strength. And there are things that support that build and support your body and support your knee. Those two things need to be balanced. So the amount you do each week for anything needs to match its opposition. Okay? I know that was confusing. I'm going to break it down. So on one side of the equation, you have strength exercises and you have training activities. So training activities being running, walking, cross training like cycling, spin class, elliptical, rowing machine, playing other activities, basketball, soccer, swimming. Okay, so those are building activities. Those are on one side of the equation over here. Okay, they are on the left side of the equation. If you're watching the video, this is my left side. Okay, my left side. And you have these things on this side of the equation, on this left side of the equation. Those things build. They add stress to things because that's how you build. You need to stress a muscle in order for it to get stronger. You need to stress your heart and your lungs in order for them to improve capacity and be able to pump stronger. Then on the other side of the equation, we have the things that support your strength building activities. So those are things like rest, massage, hot Epsom salt bath, ice plunge if that's your thing, ice packs, hot packs, stretches, food, hydration, shoes. So you need things on both sides of the equation and you need them to balance out. So if you add, let's say you do a lot of running one week, the amount of support activities you're doing need to be commensurate to the amount of running you did. If you're in marathon training and you're in the middle of training and it's a cutback week and you're doing a 5K distance when the previous week was 10 miles, well, the amount of time you spend stretching may not be the same for that 5K distance as the 10K distance. Or maybe you don't need a professional massage after doing an easy long run 5K distance, easy pace, slow, zone 2 heart rate, things like that. Maybe you don't need a professional massage after that, but after the 10 miler, 20 miler, you do need a professional massage to help your muscle knots be worked out, your muscles recover, less soreness and things like that. So you don't necessarily need all of the things all of the time, but it needs to match the amount that you did, right? Like, said another way, if you sprint really fast, you're going to need to recover longer in that workout session than if you did a long, easy run. So if you sprinted for a minute, you may need 5 minutes to recover and catch your breath. But if you did your easy pace effort for 5 minutes, you actually probably don't need to take a break. You probably could keep running if you're somebody who runs straight through. Right? Does that make sense? So the amount of support that you're giving yourself needs to match the amount of activity you're doing. If you do a really heavy set workout, you may be sore for 3 or 4 days and you can't repeat that workout for 3 or 4 days. But if you were to do lightweight or low repetition, you might actually be able to do that daily or only have 1 day of rest. And that matches the energy you put into it, the activity that you put into it. Okay, so that's what I mean. It's not always that you need more and more and more. We don't need days and days of rest when we do low weight, low repetition strength exercises. We need some rest and recovery, but we don't need days and days and days because our muscles aren't that sore. They weren't worked that hard. But when we do work them extremely hard, we do need more time. We do need to take a break for a longer amount of time. So when it comes to strength exercises, because that's the original example I was giving, more strength exercises not going to make you better in this instance where you are adding more strength exercises, more resistance, holding heavier dumbbells, and running more and more and more each week. Instead, either back off the amount of strength exercises you're doing, like the repetition number or how much weight you're using, and rest a little bit more. Take longer rest breaks, like in the session itself or throughout the week, as opposed to trying to do 5 strength workouts that week. Your body, in order to build, yes, you do need to do strength exercises. Of course, you need progressive overload, progressively more and more and more over time, but your muscles build strength. They start building strength during that workout session. But as part of building that strength, they're actually breaking down a little bit, and they finish building the strength in the rest sessions, the next day when you're sleeping. So more strength exercises in this case would not make you better. You need to back off a little bit. More is more in this case. Balance is better. So balance it out with more rest between, a variety of strength exercises, not working the exact same muscles each time. So not just doing lunges and squats, doing whole body. So more of the same thing, not better. Balanced is better. Same thing with running. Running more and more and more, not better, doesn't make you faster, doesn't make you cross the finish line. It will actually hurt you in the long run because your body needs some rest. It needs some deload weeks to catch up and recover. Another example is when it comes to stretching, because I gave that example that many people will ask me for more stretches to get rid of their knee pain. So the best example is something like tendinitis, where stretching a muscle with tendinitis actually makes you worse. Stretching more when you have tendinitis will make you worse. It will not make you feel better. It will make you feel better in the moment while you're doing it. And it gives you this false sense of security where, let's say you have patellar tendinitis and the front of your knee, right around your kneecap and underneath your kneecap hurts. Doing a quad stretch makes it feel better. Feels better in the moment. But then you come out of that stretch and it's one of those, ooh, coming out of it kind of hurts, and you just think, oh, well, I stayed in it too long. I pulled it too hard. I didn't warm up enough before I did that. And then you go about your day and your knee, your knee feels okay once you are done stretching, but the pain starts ramping up again. And then the next day, okay, well, now I need to stretch more. So I'm going to stretch more. I'm going to hold it longer. I'm going to do 3 repetitions instead of 2 repetitions. And the same thing, feels better while you're doing it. So it gives you this false sense of it's working. And then you come out of it and you're like, ooh, maybe holding it that long wasn't a good idea. And you just go in this cycle every day. I need to stretch it more. I need to stretch it more. And then before you know it, your knee is worse. Usually about a week in, your knee is worse. 1 to 2 weeks in, your knee is worse. So stretching a muscle with tendinitis is like trying to glue a frayed rope back together. So imagine you have a frayed piece of rope in front of you. And so you have like some of the fibers aren't really touching, but some of the fibers are, and those ones are solid, but the frayed ones, not all touching. So you pour some Elmer's glue over it, and then you wrap it up tight, like you smush it all together. All of the fiber pieces are touching, the glue's over it, glue's still wet, and you go to pull that rope apart. Well, the glue isn't set yet. So those frayed edges come off again, and maybe some more come off. And so you put them back together, you rub it over with glue, glue's still wet, try and stretch it, pull it apart again. And the fibers come apart again, and maybe even more fibers again. And you do this over and over and over again. It's not until you leave that piece of rope alone, let the glue set, let it harden, that you can move that piece of rope again without the frayed pieces coming apart. So every time you go to stretch your quad, when you have that patellar tendinitis, those literally pieces of your muscle, they're supposed to, if you're watching the video, I am putting my fingers, not quite interlaced, but one on top of the other. When they're frayed, when they have tendinitis, pieces of them are frayed, so they're not all touching. Okay, they're not all touching. And when you go to stretch them, they can't stay together and they start pulling apart. So even more of them can't touch. But if you leave them alone for a little bit of time, usually 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how long the tendinitis has been going on, leave it alone for a little while, the glue can set. The glue inside your body, so to speak, can set. Those fibers bind back to each other, and then you can go back about your normal business and stretch again in a slow and controlled manner, building back up to being able to hold it the 2 for 30 seconds or the 3 for 20 seconds or 30 seconds. But if you're one of my clients who has tendinitis, you know that starting off with your stretching after the active mobility, your stretching pattern is 10 seconds or 15 seconds at a time. in mid-range of motion, not end range of motion. We're not stretching as far as we can go. We're stretching in the middle and we're only doing a little bit. And so more in this case of this stretching, more is not better. Balanced is better. Balanced where we take a break from stretching, let things settle and heal. So more strength exercises is just more. More stretching is just more. You don't always need more of either of those. And that's why when I work with my clients, we look at what have you been doing for the past 4 to 6 weeks, and what did you do in the beginning of your training? If you're a client of mine and you're listening to this, do you remember when we talked about, okay, what has the past month or so looked like? And I may even have pulled out specific dates. Maybe we were looking at your pace. Maybe you were looking at your distance, probably looking at both if we picked one or the other. And then what did you do in the beginning? The beginning of this training season, the beginning of every training season. What does it look like? What training plan did you use? What was your first run back? What is your strength routine looking like? What is your stretching routine looking like? What is your recovery? What massages and and temperature-based things are you doing? Are you doing heat or ice? We'll talk about shoes. Spoiler alert, shoes matter a lot less than we think they do. I wear Brooks Launch 9s. A couple of years ago, I took one of those questionnaires on the Brooks website, and it recommended the Launch, so I tried it with full intention to return them if I didn't like them. Find a brand of shoe that does a good return policy, or buy them from a place with a good return policy, like Nordstrom. Love Nordstrom. Their return policy is flippin' fabulous. But, we'll talk about the shoes a little bit, but you'll rarely hear me say, oh yeah, that shoe is terrible for you. Very rarely. But we look at how all of these pieces go together and what they've looked like for the past month or so, and what they looked like in the beginning of your training and leading up to when this problem first began. Because it's about balancing things out. Maybe you do need more strength exercises because you're resting too much. But maybe you don't need more strength exercises and you're not resting enough. Maybe you do need more stretching because you aren't doing any. Or maybe you need less stretching and more of something else because you're doing all of the stretching and you just sit there all day in your stretch patterns. Maybe you do need more mileage. Maybe you don't. Maybe you need more cross training and incorporating spin class or cycling or rowing or elliptical, and less pounding on your knees, running on the pavement or the treadmill every day. It's balancing it out so that both sides of those equations go up together. If one side goes up and the other side doesn't go up with it, it's no longer balanced. If one side stays down and the other side goes up, it's no longer balanced. We need to make them as balanced as possible. And every week, it's not necessarily going to be 100% balanced, but they should be as close to completely even as we can get them. Okay, that is all I have for you today. I am going to be doing a podcast episode a day in January. So if you have a specific question or topic, go ahead and send me a DM, runDisneyDPT, over on Instagram. Hey, can I ask a quick favor? If you're enjoying this podcast, would you take 20 seconds to leave a rating and review? Leaving a rating and a review helps other runners find this podcast because the platform you're listening to this on will start suggesting it to runners like you. All it takes is 20 seconds. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast. As always, thanks so much for listening. That's all for now. Talk to you soon.